Welcome back to Free Media. I'm Amber Duke.
And I'm Robby Soave. President-elect Donald Trump is rolling out a sweeping new education plan for his second term. According to the Wall Street Journal, he aims to eliminate the Department of Education, restrict woke teachings, and introduce universal school choice. Trump's plan also includes using federal funding to influence school policies on transgender accommodations and critical race theory. Now, he's not alone in his push to get rid of the Department of Education. Here's Rick Scott on Fox News.
We've got to say, what agencies don't we need? Why do we have the Department of Education? Why? Our states should be doing that. Our federal government should not be involved in the education system. We should let each of our states do it, and we'll find the best. You know, if Florida's the best, other people will emulate us. What I did as governor, if I saw somebody doing something well like Rick Perry, I tried to emulate it and do it better than Rick Perry. That's what we should be doing. It's the United States of America. It's not the federal government of America. It's the United States. Let's go back and give our states the ability to do these things.
So are those some of...
And Trump ally Elon Musk retweeted a one-year-old video of Trump laying out his plans for the department, saying, "Good idea." Here's what he posted.
And one other thing I'll be doing very early in the administration is closing up the Department of Education in Washington, D.C., and sending all education and education work and needs back to the states. We want them to run the education of our children because they'll do a much better job of it. You can't do worse. We spend more money per pupil by 3 times than any other nation, and yet we're absolutely at the bottom. We're one of the worst. So you can't do worse. We're going to end education coming out of Washington, D.C. We're going to close it up, all those buildings all over the place, and you have people that in many cases hate our children. We're going to send it all back to the states.
Yeah, I interviewed Betsy DeVos, who was the Secretary of Education during Trump's first administration. I interviewed her for Reason, and she absolutely agreed that the entire department could be closed down. It does not, you know, people think, and people right now are losing their minds over this proposal, like, oh my, that's like ending public education. No, we're not saying we're going to end public education. We're not even ending public financing of education. We're just ending, the proposal is to end top-down, centralized federal control of education, return it to the states the way it should be. You did not have this department prior to, what, like 1979. You can give the funds to the school districts, better yet, to the individual students, to the families, let them decide what is the best educational outcome for their family, for their kid. If that's the public school in the neighborhood, great. If it's a private school, great. If it's a homeschooling environment, if it's some amalgamation pod type thing, whatever, families know best, not the federal government.
I saw this amazing tweet in reaction to this that said something like, "Our test scores are down in math and reading, and half of our students are illiterate, and yet Trump wants to shut down the Department of Education." Reread that again.
Yeah.
The Department of Education has been in operation since 1980. The bill was signed in 1979, and yet all of our educational outcomes are worse than they were when it was instituted. Shouldn't that be a sign that it's not doing its job?
You can see the graph over time of spending on education, and you see those math and reading scores basically staying the same or even maybe decreasing in some states, but certainly not improving dramatically despite a massive federal effort to concentrate how to handle the education system in Washington, D.C. and create this enormous bureaucracy. Mostly what this bureaucracy does is issue guidance, rulemaking, by another word, to make schools conform to the agenda of whatever the administration is in ways that are often, at the very least, confrontation or politically fraught or difficult. I think we're still working out some of these questions involving athletes and gender and facilities and all of those things. You know, you're more conservative than I am. You probably just want to keep this stuff out. I would say, like, this is not a job for the federal government. Let schools work these things out. But the guidance has been from Obama, and then Biden was like, no, this is how you have to do it. I think that's wrong. I think better yet, let the families associate their dollars with schools that are doing things the way they want. And you know what? It would actually be okay to have like a liberal school that does things one way and a conservative school that does things another and some middle ground thing and everything in between. That's fine. Just let the market decide. Don't let the federal government decide.
Yeah, I mean, so long as there's a school school choice proposal implemented, then it doesn't really matter what the public schools do, because parents would actually have the agency to be able to move their child to another school and know that their taxpayer dollars aren't going to waste by sending their kid to.
And it's a lot of money.
School.
In some of these school districts, per pupil funding, it can be 20, 25, 30K. So what that means, I think people often don't understand what that means. That means tax dollars. So tax dollars are collected, and then the school is getting $30,000 per the student for the year, whatever it is, going there. That's a lot of money. I mean, that's
more
often,
than a lot of private schools.
Yes, that's the key thing. It is more than private school tuition in a lot of places. You could, let's say you just gave $25K to the family instead. Well, you could hire a tutor to teach your kid and 4 neighborhood kids. That's $100K salary for a year for this teacher to just teach 4 kids. I mean, wouldn't? They did that during the pandemic, right? As schools started to close, people resorted to combinations of things. Well, I mean, you have smart people sometimes. Well, I'll teach the neighborhood kids history, and you teach them reading, and you teach them math. People can creatively work things out, especially when there is money to be used to help them do that. There's no reason that money has to go just automatically and directly to a failing public school system. The ones that get the most money are doing the worst job.
That's right. And especially in inner cities, they always talk about lack of funding and resources, but then they are actually some of the ones receiving the most money per student, because they are we're not doing well, please help us. And then they pass bills to give them more money, and they're still not doing well for a variety of reasons that we would never have time to get into on this show. But I mean, just looking at that $25,000 or $30,000 number per year, my Catholic church that I am a member of, a parishioner, their Catholic school for K through 8 is $10,000 a year. So not only would you be able to pay for private school tuition, you could put the rest in a 529 plan for college, right? And then you're saving for the $200,000 a year that you're expected to pay for college nowadays. And that's the other part of this that people haven't really considered, is that our university system is so broken. The reason why we have a student debt crisis is in large part because of the massive subsidization of these schools and their endowments by the federal government. Ending the Department of Education is going to force them to survive on their own merits. You're going to actually have to teach the students real information, critical thinking skills, as opposed to whatever indoctrination you're doing into the liberal academia world. And you're going to have to show that you can get them jobs and that you can get them well-paying jobs. They're going to have to actually create a return on investment for their degree without them having to take out $200,000 of student loans.
Yes, this is something liberals and conservatives should get excited about, because the higher education system is so pernicious in how it has really tricked an entire generation of young people into going into massive debt on a false promise that this is a good investment for every single kid. It is not. I cannot warn young people enough. Think very carefully. A college degree is a useful thing. Think very, very hard and very carefully before you go into massive debt to get one. You don't have to do that. No one is making you. You have to guarantee, if it's your parents' money and you're rich, whatever, have fun, who cares? But don't take out money, don't borrow money to do it. In so many cases, that is not a good investment. And you're right that it is the subsidy, the encouragement of that kind of thing that then creates this public crisis where you have all these indebted young people who are genuinely sympathetic people in many cases, but that it's totally unfair to ask other people to foot the bill for their bad choices. But they were bad choices that they made in part because of the encouragement of federal education bureaucrats.
And then you do a massive debt forgiveness program, and the colleges are only further incentivized to continue raising tuition.
Why not triple it?
Their students are never going to be on the hook for the debt that they're taking out. So why would they have any qualms about doing it?
At that point, it's just theft, and we will not stand for it anymore.
No,
we're closing down that department.
By the way, one more point on the Trump plans with the departments before we go, because I love this one too. So Lee Zeldin was nominated to the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, which is a horrific agency for all sorts of reasons. It's death grip on agriculture, and you can't even build a pond on your own farm. The Sierra Club and various left-wing environmental agencies were apoplectic that Trump would nominate someone who didn't have any experience in environmental policy. And I thought their tears were so delicious.
Well, I'm sorry. Is that a legal consumption of tears? Because you might be disrupting
violating the waters of the USA.
Yeah, the habitat of the red speckled dodo hen or something.
Right. Yeah.
Is there somebody you forgot to ask? All right. Thank you so much for watching Free Media this week. Please like, share, and subscribe, and let us know what you think of the show. And we'll be back next week. Bye-bye.